Laxative Tester, Horse Inseminator is the 4th episode of the 7th season of 2.5 Men. This is directed by James Widdoes, and as always, there will be spoilers from now. I go through the episode and share some thoughts. It's a good episode. It's probably never going to be a favourite. I've mentioned this before, so I won't go on about it too much, but I'm not a huge fan of the episodes that focus on Melissa and Chelsea, and the last few episodes have really focused on Melissa and Chelsea, so I don't love that part of it, though I quite like the story with Chelsea, so I'll go through things chronologically and share some thoughts, but I don't have a tremendous amount to say with this one. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's not a favourite. It starts off with Jake sitting next to Chelsea and Charlie on the sofa. Chelsea tries to engage with Jake. He's not interested. I don't necessarily think he's being rude. Well, maybe he's being rude, but he's not intentionally being rude. He's just a teenager, not interested in the conversation, so he leaves. And Chelsea is a little concerned because she wants to get to know Jake, much to Chelsea's credit. I think she's trying really hard, and I think that's really admirable. Alan and Melissa are, meanwhile, trying to have sex in a car, and it's not working, and Melissa says that she won't go back to Charlie's house with Chelsea there after what Chelsea said about her. So Melissa storms off out of the car. Alan tries to chase after her and gets caught with his trousers down his ankles by the police. It's not a great moment for Alan. He realises something needs to change, so he decides to take an extra job to get more money to help him move out, and he ends up working with Evelyn. I would have liked to have seen a lot more of this. I think they could have done a lot more with Alan and Evelyn. I think we could have got a lot more comedy out of this. I love the colour of the blazer. I love the blazer he's wearing. We did get a little bit of comedy when they're showing somebody a house, but I just think they could have done more. We could have definitely got more out of it. Maybe that's a personal preference thing. Maybe other people feel like we got more than enough, but I would have liked to have seen a bit more. And Alan comes up with a plan. He decides to tell Melissa that the property that's for sale that they're showing around is actually a place he's rented. And Melissa doesn't really question it too much, how he could afford to rent this gorgeous, gorgeous property, considering he is taking a second job to find anywhere to rent. It's quite a leap, but she goes along with it, and Alan, obviously not wanting to have sex in somebody else's bed or on the sofa, puts down a beach towel in front of the fireplace. It's romantic, it is. We'll come back to that in a moment. We're then back at the house, and Charlie does something that I think might have been a good idea, but it doesn't work out for Charlie. He decides to send Jake to the bedroom where Chelsea is, and he's not allowed out until they both talk about it and come to an agreement where they can get along civilly. I feel like they're overreacting, though. I've never really seen a lot from Jake where he's being nasty to Chelsea or dismissive of her feelings. I haven't got any of that. So I feel like they're overreacting, unless there are things behind closed doors that we haven't seen. But nevertheless, maybe it was a good idea, and we'll come back to that in a second. Although I will say, Jake said to Chelsea, I guess you owe me an apology. Not the greatest look for Jake, but we'll come back to them in a moment. We're then back at the house. Alan and Melissa are on the beach towel enjoying some wine, and then Melissa accidentally spills some red wine on the carpet, the cream or white carpet, and then Alan accidentally spills some wine. Obviously, this isn't his property. How is he going to explain that? It's a bit of a difficult situation. We're then back at the house, and Jake and Chelsea have come to an agreement. They've agreed that Charlie is the problem. And I have to say, credit to Charlie. I think he handled this really well. They both confront him in the kitchen. It's a great scene. Really enjoyed it. And initially, Charlie was like, what are you talking about? How can I be the problem? But then he realised that everything can be resolved if he just plays along and admits that he's the problem. Now, I'm not saying he's definitely not the problem, but I don't think he is. He doesn't make Jake treat Chelsea the way he does, which I think is just typical teenage behaviour. I don't think it's anything over the top. And I don't think he makes Chelsea paranoid that Jake doesn't like her. I don't think it's Charlie's fault at all, but he realised that if he just agrees with this, then they'll start to get along. So I think credit to him where it's due. He made the right decision. And then we're back with Alan and Melissa, and Alan is standing there in his underwear with some rubber gloves on from cleaning up the mess, and it seems like he and Melissa are about to be friends again because they've had a bit of a falling out because Melissa didn't like the fact that Alan shouted at her. And then the door opens, and it's clearly Evelyn coming to show somebody around the property. and Alan scoops Melissa up. They run out the house. They are about to run away, and Melissa's ran off in the opposite direction, and Alan is yet again caught by the police, this time very naked with the rubber gloves on. I think the rubber gloves were a really good touch. It would have been just as funny without them, but it just made it that little bit more amusing. And there we basically end the episode. We end with Charlie and Alan talking out on the deck. But it's a good episode. There's nothing about it that I didn't like. I actually quite liked Chelsea. On the one hand, I think she's being too sensitive to Jake. I feel like, or to the way Jake's behaving. I feel like he's just treating her the way he would treat anybody, which in itself is kind of a good thing. He's treating her the way he treats his father and his uncle, and that's kind of a good thing. Obviously, not to be on the receiving end of that. And also, I would be the Chelsea in this scenario. I would be, if somebody was treating me in a way that didn't seem very kind or seemed like they didn't like me, I would behave like Chelsea. I would be concerned. I would be worried. And I can't really fault her for that. But at the same time, I don't think Jake means anything by it. And I rather enjoyed it. It's a good episode. Never going to be a personal favourite. But that being said, Laxative Tester, Horse Inseminator is still a really great episode of 2.5 Men.